a wild podcast appears. Greetings and salutations, people of the internet, and welcome to the first ever Random Encounter Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Master RBG. So, some of you might be wondering, Master RBG, what's the deal? Why a podcast? Well, I decided to make this as a method of improving communication with you guys and creating more content on a regular basis. Of course, these podcasts will only come out when there's enough stuff going on in the game industry to actually discuss it in a 10-plus-ish minute-long video format. So, understandably, the schedule for these will be random, hence the title. The benefit of this, of course, is that I can talk about all kinds of stuff that I would never be able to make a video longer than maybe a minute or two long on its own. But I can compile them and discuss them here on a semi-ish regular basis. But enough background and behind-the-scenes nonsense, let's start the podcast proper. So, Splatoon 2 came out recently, which means the debate over whether you're a kid now or a squid now has been rekindled and is setting the internet ablaze once more. It also means there's yet another reason to own a Switch. Although, between the new Octoling chick, Zelda, and that lady from ARMS, I'm beginning to think that Tatsumi Kimishima is secretly a fan of Sir Mix-a-Lot. Not that that's a bad thing, mind you. Anywho, I was a big fan of the original Splatoon and look forward to playing Splatoon 2 someday. Sadly, I won't be able to do that terribly soon because, I don't have a Switch yet. It's not that I don't want to get one, it's that I can't get one because I can't find one of the blasted things. I have yet to encounter a Switch in the wild. So, until then, this is where I'd put my Switch. If I had one! Sorry. Lost my cool there for a minute. Okay, next topic. So, after 24 long years, Sega finally decided to cut ties with Archie Comics and canceled the long-running, no joke intended, Sonic comic book series. Which, I have to admit, it was harder news to take than I thought. You guys may not know this, but I grew up on Sega System, die-hard Sonic fan back in the day. So of course, I collected the Archie Sonic comics and read them all the time. I still have my collection of Sonic comics, actually. I even have an autographed issue that a good friend of mine got for me. Now, to be honest, after the fall of Sega Dreamcast and after the Endgame storyline, I just kinda stopped following the comics. But it still doesn't feel right that the series just got cancelled like that, even if I'm not an active reader of the series anymore. Maybe it's because they didn't allow the series to have a finale, or something before it was cancelled. I feel that after over 20 years, it's the very least they can do for the fans to give them some closure. They feel, weird to end it this way. They ended with 290 issues. They could have given a 10-part series finale to tie up the loose ends and let the comic end at a nice round 300 issues. Come on, guys, think of the fans, darn it! Okay, speaking of strange decisions from industry vets that have gotten out of the gaming console business, have you heard about Atari's recent activities? Oh yes, after a 30-year hiatus, after exiting the console business, they decided to re-enter with a new system. Oh, I'm not kidding, I wish I were, but I'm really not. And they're calling it the Atari Box. Now bear in mind, this isn't just something they're choosing to do after a 30-year hiatus. It's after a 30-year hiatus and going bankrupt and being bought out. Just to be perfectly clear. Remember? They filed for bankruptcy and got bought out by somebody else a few years back. Can't remember the exact time frame. I think it was like 2013-ish, somewhere around there. Now, they say that it'll boast both new games as well as Atari's library of classic games. Now, unfortunately, they're being rather mum on details, but what we do know is that it has SD card support. It'll have 4 USB ports, so I'm gonna take a wild guess and assume its controllers will plug in there. USB controllers make sense. It does. It also has an HDMI port? Really? An HDMI port for classic Atari games. Really? What even is the point? Okay, well, I guess that means they must be at least somewhat committed to the idea of actually having new games, because there's really no point in having that for a lot of their classic titles. Oh, who am I kidding? Any of their classic titles. Although I do hate to admit it, I kinda dig the old school aesthetic of the system, though. I mean, they're even using wood paneling. Now that, friends, is retro to the extreme. Seriously though, who thought this was a good idea? How on earth did this concept ever get approved? Who'd even have guts enough to bring up such an idea at a meeting? Much less get it approved. I mean, for this to happen, the guy who brought this up had to have been like God's gift to marketing. So much so that upon his birth, a chorus of marketing executives was there to herald the coming of their chosen one. Either that or this guy has a natural 20 in charisma. One or the other. So, speaking of crazy marketing decisions, my little sister has gotten sucked in by yet another Nintendo mobile game. And no, I'm not talking about the Fire Emblem one. Or the Mario Run one. No, I wish it was one of those. Unfortunately, no. She's become addicted to Magikarp Jump of all things. Why? It's a game completely centered around Magikarp. Literally the weakest Pokemon in the series. At least before he evolves, anyway. A Pokemon who's been the butt end of many a joke in the Pokemon universe is now going to be the leading man in his own title. Or leading Mon, in this case. A title, I might add, which is surprisingly cruel and morbid. It's possible for the Magikarp you train to die in any number of horrible ways. To include, but not limited to, eating glass. Getting captured by a bird Pokemon like Pidgeotto and eaten after it's been taken away. At least it's done off screen anyway. Blown up by a Voltorb, and there are many, many references to the possibility of being made into sushi. And on the unbelievably off chance you manage to evolve your Magikarp into a Gyarados, the mayor in the game takes it away from you. What a jerk! Oh, and there's a super slim chance of catching a Dratini instead of a Magikarp in the lake. But if you do this, the game will apologize about the mix-up and take it away from you. Oh, how I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when this idea was being brought up at a meeting or whatever. I can almost picture it in my mind. Somebody brings up a new Pokemon mobile game idea at a meeting, but mentions that this one will only focus on a single Pokemon, and the conversation may have gone something like this. So, will it star Pikachu? No. Well, how about Charmander? No. Squirtle? No. How about Bulbasaur? Maybe a Farmville kind of thing with him? No. How about Mudkip? I heard the internet loves that guy. No. Well then who? Magikarp. You mean the weakest Pokemon in the game's history? Yes! Are you being serious? Yes. If we can make a profitable game based on Magikarp, then nothing can stop us. We can even make some sappy song about Magikarp shortly before its release. Well, that's just crazy. I know. So crazy it just might work. And thus Magikarp Jump was born. Or at least that's my headcanon anyway. So, Sega recently released a trailer for the upcoming Sonic Forces game, which showed off the new villain, Infinity. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about him yet. He kinda has a cool looking design, and they actually didn't make the new animal character another hedgehog. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he's a fox, which could lead to some interesting possibilities depending on how they spin it in the story. Maybe he's actually a future version of Tails, who got involved in a terrible disfiguring accident that left him with only one tail. Of course, that's just pure speculation. I can't back any of that up. It's a pity that there isn't a comic anymore. Maybe they could have further explored his backstory there. Oh well, maybe it can be discussed in the new IDW Sonic comic book coming out in 2018. It could happen. So, I hear a lot of people dislike the new villain. Because, and I'm quoting here, he's just like a generic Sonic OC. Which is kinda funny if you think about it. I mean, the third playable character in the game is literally a Sonic OC, with customizable clothing and everything. And yet, it's the cool design having new villain who gets the OC bashing treatment. The only thing about him that in any way, shape, or form makes him like any of the countless Sonic OCs out there is a single line uttered by Tails in the trailer, stating that this guy is faster than Sonic. Which happens to be a line in about, 35%-ish of all Sonic OCs. Over 75% if we're only going to count the Hedgehog-based Sonic OCs. Personally, I'm just glad he didn't end up as yet another new Hedgehog character. Because for a long while there, Sega just kept throwing in a new Hedgehog character whenever they needed another edgy, cool, and mysterious character for the series. And it got old really fast. In honesty, I'm going to reserve my final judgment of this character until I actually see him in the new game. But until then, I'll be optimistic and hope for the best. Anyways, that's all the time we have for this podcast, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts or suggestions on any topics covered in this podcast, or maybe something you'd like to see in a future one, let me know down below in the comments section. If you enjoy this, hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of my nonsense and craziness in the future, hit that subscribe button for me. Until next time, this is Master RBG, signing off.